All right, I'm doing the brakes, the back brakes on a 2016 GMC Sierra 1500, and these, the GMCs and the Chevys, the 1500s especially, are famous for the rear brakes becoming glazed. And what happens is, what that really means is that the rotors are glazed and they're almost too slippery, right? So if you look at a rotor, typically what you'll see is it'll look more like an aluminum finish on it, more like this part of the rotor. So when they become glazed, they'll almost look like a mirror. And what's going on there is a couple things. They're getting hot, and what happens is the rotors become glazed and or they can warp just a little bit. So what happens is on the highway, you'll notice this a lot, is in the back of the truck, when you put the brakes on the highway, it'll feel like the back end is kind of hopping a little bit and vibrating. And you don't necessarily feel it in the steering wheel. So if it was the front wheels, you would feel the steering wheel kind of shake back and forth. So that's one way you can kind of troubleshoot for yourself. If you have on the highway, if you go to hit the brakes, and not hard, but just kind of touch them a little bit to get off the highway, to take an exit or whatever, and you feel that the brakes are shaking the truck and the steering wheel isn't really shaking back and forth, it's just you can feel it in the back end of the truck, it's because your brakes, the rotors are glazed and the pads cannot seat and they cannot grip the rotor, and they're hopping from one side of the rotor to the next, right? So it's just the way it is with brakes. And again, the Chevys and the GMCs, the 1500s especially, the back brakes, you'll do them in about 10,000 miles, they're going to be glazed. The rotors are going to be bad. Two options you have at that point is you can turn the rotors, which if you can find someone who still does that, is definitely a good option, because I think they get about $20 a rotor to turn them. And then you can also just replace the rotors completely with brand new rotors. That's probably the most common solution to when the back brakes go on these. So what I did was I just bought a brand new set of rotors in the back, and I'm going to change them out here today. So the first thing you want to do is you want to tear down the original or the existing wheel, take it off, and then you're going to take off the caliper, which is this guy here, and you're going to take off the bracket that holds the actual caliper to the frame of the axle, right? This is called the carriage, or there's another term for it, but basically this is going to hold your caliper to your rear axle. There's two bolts in the back, so you can do all that, and it's not that bad. You need a socket and some wrenches, and once you get that off, you'll end up being able to slide the rear rotor right off, and that's the old one there. The new one, what you want to do is you want to spray it down with brake cleaner, because these are machined with oil, and the oil prevents corrosion from forming between the time it's machined and by the time you put it on your vehicle. So they coat these with oil, so there's not a lot of rust when you get them. However, you want to make sure you take that oil off, and you can do that with some brake cleaner. You're just going to spray the inside on this one, and you're going to spray also inside the parking brake area. This is the drum for the parking brake inside here. Spray it all down, and then take a nice clean rag and wipe it down. Do both sides, get it all clean, and then you're going to put that back on. Okay, now I got the new rotor back on. It's all sprayed down. I've got the carriage that holds the actual caliper, those two bolts on. What you want to do is you want to lubricate the slides on it, so you can pull these slides out. They just slide right out. If you take them, they'll come right out in your hand. I've already lubed them up. So you want to wipe them down with a rag and then put some new grease on them. And this is special slide grease for brake slides. You can re-lubricate both your slides, so that'll be all set. And then you can take your pads. The pads on these were like brand new still, because the problem wasn't really the pads, it was the rotors. They were glazed. So you want to take your pads, clean them down with some brake cleaner, spray them all down really good, and then just get the shine. If there is a shine on the pads, just take some 220 grit sandpaper and just sand them lightly on the face of the pads, and that'll take that shine off there. That's not really super important because as soon as you go to apply the brakes with the new rotors, there's actually a grit machined into the face of the rotor that will do the same thing. I like to do that just so it helps the rotors kind of break in faster. So 220 grit, take off the old shine, and then again, spray them down, clean them up really good. Spray everything down one last time, and then put it all back together. Okay, that's it. Everything's back together on this side. The next step would be to put the tire back on, and that is pretty much it. And unfortunately, these will go probably another 10,000 miles or so, and I'll need to change them the same way. Again, this is just how they are on the GMCs and the Chevys. Whether there's just a little bit of pressure on the back caliper to keep that brake on too much, or the brakes are just designed, you know, not to be used for towing, maybe is one of the factors. If you tow a lot, you may see this happen more often in the back. But super easy fix, and it's about, you know, I would say 45 minutes on each side, so you're about an hour and a half on both sides. Not a real big deal, and I think I spent maybe 175 bucks on rotors. So definitely not a big deal. It's obviously something that you're gonna have to deal with if you tow a lot. I happen to tow quite a bit, so I'm expecting to do more maintenance on the brakes on my truck. So I hope this is helpful to you, and that's about it.